history facts you might believe, but they're actually wrong. History is full of stories we've all heard, but sometimes the truth is very different. Take the pyramids of Egypt. Most of us picture thousands of slaves whipped under the burning sun, dragging massive stones until they collapsed. But that image is false. The pyramids were not built by slaves. Egypt did have slaves, but mostly prisoners of war and household servants. But the pyramid builders were something else. They were Egyptians, drafted through corvée labor. Instead of paying taxes with money, farmers paid with work. During the Nile's flood season, when their fields were underwater, they joined the crews building temples and pyramids. And they weren't left to starve. Archaeologists uncovered entire villages beside the pyramids, with bakeries, breweries, and even piles of cattle bones. Workers had bread, beer, and meat. Excavated cemeteries show they were buried with respect, and their skeletons reveal healed injuries, proof they even received medical care. We also have written evidence. The Turin Strike Papyrus, dating back to 1170 BC, records the first labor strike in history. Workers literally dropped their tools and refused to continue until they were given their promised rations of bread and beer. So the Great Pyramids weren't raised by endless chains of slaves, but by skilled Egyptians working with pride. It's a reminder that what we think we know about history often isn't the full story. And Egypt isn't the only place where myths have survived for centuries. Travel forward in time to ancient Rome, and you'll find another misconception that refuses to die. The Gladiators. We often picture blood-soaked battles to the death, two men fighting until only one survives. But that's not the full story. Gladiator fights were brutal, but they were also controlled. These men were valuable. They were trained athletes, and their owners wanted them alive, not dead. Of course, some matches ended in death, but most didn't. Referees stood inside the arena, stopping fights before a final blow could land. Records even show that many gladiators fought again and again, surviving years in the arena. And they weren't all nameless slaves. Some were prisoners of war or criminals, but many others volunteered. They chased fame, wealth, and the roar of the crowd. The arena wasn't just swords and shields either. There were more than 30 types of gladiators. The retiarius, with his net and trident, the secutor, heavy with armor and shield, even bizarre matchups like criminals forced to fight blindfolded. Audiences had their favorites, just like we follow star athletes today. And the biggest names became legends, cheered, celebrated, and feared. So no, gladiators weren't simply disposable men doomed to die in the sand. They were fighters, entertainers, and celebrities of their age. But Rome wasn't the only empire surrounded by legends. Travel back to Egypt once more and meet a queen whose story has been twisted for centuries. Cleopatra, the last pharaoh of Egypt. For centuries, she's been remembered as the ultimate Egyptian queen, draped in gold, ruling from the banks of the Nile. But the real story is not quite what most people think. Cleopatra was unique among her dynasty. She actually spoke Egyptian, embraced Egyptian customs, and presented herself as a true pharaoh. Her people saw her as one of their own. But here's the twist. By blood, Cleopatra wasn't Egyptian at all. She was Macedonian Greek, descended from Ptolemy I, one of Alexander the Great's generals. For nearly 300 years, her family ruled Egypt while acting, well, very Greek. They spoke Greek, worshipped Greek gods, and practiced a lot of family marriage. What made Cleopatra stand out wasn't just her crown or her looks, though Roman propaganda turned her into the seductress queen. Her real weapon was her mind. She spoke up to 9 languages, negotiated with world powers, and turned relationships with Julius Caesar, and later Mark Antony, into bold political moves that kept Egypt independent, at least for a time. Until Octavian showed up, won the war, and basically said, "Thanks, I'll take it from here." But that's another video. Back to the topic. Cleopatra ruled Egypt as pharaoh, but she wasn't Egyptian by blood. She was a foreigner who mastered 2 cultures, outsmarted some of Rome's most powerful men, and secured her place as one of the most unforgettable rulers in history. Cleopatra's story shows how history twists the truth. Now jump forward over 1,000 years and you'll find the Vikings, a people whose image has been just as distorted. When you picture Vikings, You probably see hulking warriors with horned helmets storming monasteries and drinking from skulls. Sounds epic, right? Well, none of that is actually true. For starters, the helmets, archaeologists have never found a single horned Viking helmet. The whole image actually comes from 19th century opera costumes. So if you imagine Vikings charging into battle with giant horns on their heads, the only thing they'd be conquering is low doorways. And the skull drinking? That was another myth spread by early writers. In reality, they drank from wooden cups, metal goblets, or even animal horns. Now, that doesn't mean Vikings were harmless. They were fierce raiders, traders, and explorers, but they weren't just mindless brutes. Many were skilled sailors, farmers, and craftsmen who built settlements across Europe, reached as far as North America, and even served as bodyguards in the Byzantine Empire. So the next time you picture a Viking, don't imagine a wild man in a horned helmet guzzling from a skull. Imagine a complex society. Warriors, yes, but also settlers, traders, and explorers who left a far deeper mark on history than the myths suggest. And really, it's the same story across the ages. Pyramids that weren't built by slaves, gladiators who didn't always fight to the death, Cleopatra who wasn't even Egyptian. History is full of myths we've all heard, but rarely question. Which of these surprised you the most? Or did you already know them all? Let me know in the comments, and if you want more myths busted, I've got plenty lined up. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.